Hello everyone, this is the NVQ Level 2 Activity Leadership Unit 2 Lead Activity Session podcast. We're going to be doing one of these for every aspect, every unit of this qualification, along with the partner qualifications as well, such as the Employment Awareness and the Gym Instructing Level 2 as well. Okay. The idea behind it is that you guys can obviously log on to my YouTube page, watch the videos, gain the information you need. If you miss anything, you can always stop, rewind it, and revisit the material on each of the podcasts. Which means basically, in essence, you've always got sort of me there to give you information. Okay. If I don't cover any information which you feel you need, or you have certain issues with certain aspects, then obviously please just drop me an email or a text or call me up, and we can discuss the specific area which you're having difficulty with. All right. So what we are going to do now is we're going to progress through Unit 2. I will be coming onto the site, at your site, to do observations for you, leading your 3 activity sessions over the coming weeks. I will ring you up personally and organise dates for those, so don't worry about them. Just make sure that you do your plans, or that you've done your plans, you've filled in the following boxes, and that you're prepared to do your observation over the coming weeks. Okay. So if we go onto our first page here, you've already done your health and safety checklist and 3 session plans for 3 different clients in Unit 1. Okay, so you do not need to do these. You can page past all of these here, get past all this bump, and we'll start on the first page here. Okay, so the first page is all to do, obviously, with leading activity sessions. And the first question states, why is it important to follow your plans for the sessions or varying these plans to meet new needs and opportunities? So when we're doing our sessions, we need to plan, okay, and we need to follow our plans. And the reason for that is, within our plan, we've given ourselves a clear idea of what we're doing. Okay, we've broken it down into certain time segments and into certain areas such as the warm-up, the main session, the cool-down. We've talked about what parts make up each of those aspects as well. So if we follow that, we know that we're going to cover every aspect that we want to and meet all our aims and objectives, which could be, for example, if you're doing a gym instructing session, your aims and objectives may be to increase someone's knowledge on how to become stronger and how to carry out certain exercises which will get them stronger. Now, within your plan, you'll have a load of different, obviously, parts which will work towards those aims and objectives. Now, if you just discard your plan and you don't follow it, one, it was pointless doing it in the first place, but secondly, you may miss certain key aspects which are integral to your session. Okay, so it's really important to follow your plan which you've made beforehand. You may, in every session, I mean, it's very, very, very likely that you will change certain aspects throughout every session, okay? And the reason why you would change certain aspects is to meet the needs of the individual or of the group, okay? For example, as I put down on the page there in front of us, you may have misjudged the ability of the group. So you may have planned a session to a beginner, okay, or a group of beginners, and you get to the actual session and you're there and you realise that the group or the individuals that you've got are a lot more able than what you were or maybe first told or what you predicted. Then obviously it's fine to then change things. You don't want to stay with the beginner's session plan, okay? Otherwise that group or individual is not going to get anything from that session, okay? They're going to be learning things that they already know or taking part in skills that they're already competent in, okay? So you would need to then meet these new needs and the new ability of this group or of the individual, okay? Therefore, you'd make things a bit more difficult, or you might change your session slightly. All right. Another reason why you might change the session to meet their needs is if you're going to cater for different learning styles. Okay. Now, different learning styles mean you've got participants who might be more visual, which means they like to see something done in front of them. They like to read something or see it on a tactics board. You might have some individuals that are more audio, so they like to listen and take in instructions, or you might have individuals that like to actually, they learn by doing, and they're known as kinesthetic learners. Okay, so you need to make sure that when you're leading your session that you accommodate for all those different learning styles. Okay, all right, there could be a lot of opportunities within your session to do that. All right. I hope I've covered everything in that question there. If we move on to question 2, we've got, why is it important to communicate clearly with the participants according to their needs? Well, obviously, it's really important to communicate with everybody which we work with very clearly, and that's so that everybody understands what is expected of them. Okay, what the participants need to do. They need to know that, obviously. Okay. You can communicate in a variety of different ways. As I've just said before, you can communicate either by sitting everybody down and talking through exactly what is expected. You can give demonstrations, or you can show PowerPoints, or you could use a tactics board. Okay, whichever way you think is going to be most effective and the clearest way to get across your instructions, that is what you use. And as I said previously in the last question, it's always useful to use a variety of different methods that meet different learning styles. Okay. Within the question as well there, it says communicate clearly according to their needs. Now, you may come into contact with participants that have different needs. Okay. Examples of different needs may be, they could be hard of hearing. Okay. So in that case, you would really maybe want to use a lot more kind of visual and kinesthetic styles, okay, if they can't really hear too well. All right. You could also come into contact with people that are more visually impaired, and obviously there's different areas which you could use for that. And also one of the other areas which you may encounter is individuals with learning difficulties. Okay, and these are things which you need to be aware of, that you need to plan for beforehand. But then within your session, when you're delivering, you need to be aware that you've got a load of different methods and resources available to you with regards, either doing it visually, doing demonstrations, or getting them to walk through the actual technique themselves beforehand. Okay? So, if we move on to our next question here, we've got, how would you communicate clearly with both individuals and groups? Okay, so obviously you may have different methods between those two areas, basically. Okay. Now, one method which you could use for groups, and which seems to be quite successful, it's one that I use a lot in my day-to-day job, is team meetings. Okay. You get everyone together. You can either sit them around a table, or you can get them on the pitch, or you can get them in the gym, or wherever, and sit them down. And you can have team meetings, and you can communicate clearly what you're trying to get across, whether it be techniques, skills, tactics, anything like that. Basically, okay? So that's how you could communicate with a group. Now, with one-to-ones, it's a little bit, with individuals, it's a little bit different. You could do one-to-one meetings, okay, and appraisals, where you can sit down on a one-to-one basis, and you can if they've only just started with you, you can tell them about what their targets are, or if it's someone that you've taught or that you've been coaching for a while, you can tell them about their progress, give them feedback. And that is how you would communicate clearly with groups or individuals. Moving down, our next question states, why is it important to adapt so that means change, so why is it important to change your plans and methods to meet each participant's individual needs? Okay, now this is something which comes up a lot in coaching. You need to adapt your plans because everybody is an individual, everybody's different. Everybody learns differently, everyone's a different shape, so exercises that one person might be able to do, another person might find it difficult due to the body size or the strength or the amount of muscle they've got. And also, people take different amounts of time to pick up certain skills as well, or different techniques, okay? And you, as a good coach, should always be aware of that and should be able to read the progress of an individual and the mannerisms and the body language and adapt their plans to suit that individual, okay? Because the most important thing is that this person, first of all, safe, but also is going to enjoy the session, and with the enjoyment comes motivation. And if someone's motivated, then they're going to do effective learning and effective training. And again, you also, I know I've gone on about it before, but you need to consider different learning styles for different people because everybody's got their own learning style as well. And it's not just one or the other, it could be a mixture of a few, okay? And as you can see in that box there, I've put down learning styles and in brackets Honey and Mumford. What they are, that's not the name of, some kind of accompaniment and the band. That is, they are two researchers, okay? So it'd be really good if you went away and you researched Honey and Mumford learning styles, okay? And maybe just take a few lines from what you find and put that in your answer as well. That's going to help you have a further understanding of this area, and also maybe give you some points as well within this task. So moving on from there. Next question, why is it important to balance risk with the benefits of risk? Now obviously, with everything you do, I mean, whenever you leave the house in the morning, there's a certain risk, isn't there? But you know that when you leave the house in the morning and you go to work and you earn money, the money that you get is there's a bigger benefit to that than there is of the risk of you being hurt when you leave the house. And it's the same for when you're coaching, okay? You may get people to do, or individuals or groups to do things which have a certain amount of risk. For example, when you take someone into the gym to do activities, obviously there's a certain amount of risk that they may get injured in there due to pulling a muscle or falling over a weight or anything like that, okay? The same with swimming. There's an inherent risk in swimming, isn't there? That obviously you're in water. There's a risk which comes with, if you jump in and you hurt yourself, or if you stay in the water for too long, there's a risk there, obviously. Okay. Now it's important to get the balance right to ensure that your participants are safe. That is your biggest concern when you do a session is the safety of your participant. Okay. Also, if you get the balance right, it ensures good development. Okay, because what this could be, an example of this could be, when you go into the gym, you've got a new starter who's done a little bit of weight work, but you want it to increase the weight because they want to increase their strength. Okay, now when you increase their weights, you're going to do it gradually. Okay, because if you increase it too much, as you may know, there's going to be a bigger risk of you injuring that person. Okay, so what this question means about by the balance is the risk too much for the benefit? Okay, so if you're trying to lift 100k straight away, the risk there is that you're probably definitely going to pull something. Okay, so it's not worth the risk because the benefits you're not going to get any benefits from that either. Okay, so it's about what you're trying to do to them. Is it progressive enough? Is it like in small little stages that it's going to ensure development without having too much risk attached to it? Okay, and I'll put another example there as well. The removal of armbands from young swimmers, okay, making that transition from wearing armbands or water wings to swimming on their own. Obviously, there's a risk there, but the benefit is they're gonna develop probably faster, okay, without the water wings. All right. So that's that pretty much boxed off. Next up, we have why should participants be motivated to learn effectively? Okay, you should always be trying to involve whoever you're coaching or whoever you're teaching to get involved and to learn effectively. All right, you're trying to make the learners or the participants buy into the activity that you're doing. Okay, get a vested interest, which is in turn will give them more motivation. Okay, if they feel like they're involved and if they can see targets which they're working towards, they will get more involved and they'll get more motivation because they're working towards something. If they're involved as well, it promotes more independent learning. So what that means is, even after your session, they may go away and think, I really enjoyed that. I want to find out how I can, improve like now. They might go away and find out different techniques of exercise or different techniques within their sport, such as swimming. And that will, on top of that, that will make them obviously more effective learners. And it's really important that when you're doing a session that you make it clear why you're doing certain things as well, because there's nothing worse, as you may know, there's nothing worse than doing a job or a session and you don't know why you're doing it because you will lose motivation. Okay, so you need to set out clearly why you're telling a person to do something and what they're going to gain. And if you do that, along with everything else that I've just said, they will be motivated to become more effective learners. Okay. So if we move on from there, we've got why is it important to provide participants with clear and supportive feedback on what they have achieved. Now obviously, we all need feedback. Your participants need feedback. It's the cornerstone of development and knowing knowing what you need to do in order to progress. Okay, so it's really important to give supportive and clear feedback in order for good development to occur, basically. All right. Now, what supportive feedback means is that you're not just saying you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, sort this out. It's that you're highlighting certain strengths, so you're letting them know things that they are actually doing well. Okay, because that's just as important as trying to change the things that they aren't doing well. People need that reinforcement as well. Okay, if you're always just told that you're not doing this right, you're not doing that right, again, as we've said before, morale is going to dip. Motivational dip, and people won't enjoy it, and it won't be a good experience for you, the coach, or for the participant either. Okay, so alongside that supportiveness, you need to make sure that how you inform them of their areas for improvement. Okay, so try not to call them weaknesses. Their areas for improvement, that you approach them in a constructive way, and it's something that is going to help them take on board, go away, and improve. Okay, so it's really important to be supportive and give feedback that is going to help them improve positively. Okay, it's going to at the end of the day make them feel good about themselves. So if we move on to our next question, whizzing through these, we've got identify 2 situations in which extra motivation may need to be given to a participant. Okay, there's a bit of a mistype there. I should say to the participant. So obviously we all like motivation, we all need motivation, we all need something to make us get out of bed in the morning, go to work or do our exercising in the gym. Now it says give 2 situations where extra motivation may be given to participants. Now you can do this during the session, and this can take the form of obviously a verbal praise, maybe setting a certain target within the session to them, whether it be reaching a certain weight that they're lifting or a certain techniques that they need to be able to do before the end of your swimming session. It could be anything like that. Okay, so during the session is one situation where you can give extra motivation. The second situation would be, as we've already mentioned, the feedback after the session. That's where you can give within your feedback. You could formulate your feedback so that it could be a motivational talk. Or you could put targets in the feedback. You say, you're not quite doing this correctly now, but why don't we set a target for 2 weeks to make sure that you can do this certain technique or lift this certain weight. Okay, so that in itself is motivation. Giving targets is a great motivator. All right, moving on. We have list 2 different methods that can be used to motivate participants without putting undue pressure on them. Okay, so that's a biggie. All right, you don't want to make individuals feel like they've got too much pressure on them, like you're putting too much pressure on them, especially if you're dealing with youngsters. Youngsters don't normally deal with pressure too well. Adults are a little bit more, kind of ready to take on a bit of pressure. But youngsters, you want to make sure that you're not putting on any undue pressure. And the way you can do that, again, I know it seems like I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but you can use what's called SMART targets. Okay. Now the S stands for specific, so your targets need to be specific. So therefore, you might say, right, but I want you to be able to lift 30 kg on a deadlift. Okay. Now the M stands for measurable. Okay, so that needs to be measurable. So you need to say, right, you need to be able to lift that weight within a certain amount of time. And then the A stands for achievable. So you can't say to a 12-year-old, right, I want you to be able to bench press 100k by tomorrow, okay? Because that's not achievable. All right, so you want to make sure that they're specific, that they're measurable, and that they're achievable, okay? And the R stands for realistic, all right? So you need to give goals that you know that your participant can realistically achieve within the time scale that you've given them, okay? And the T just stands for timed. You need to let them know, obviously, how long they've got to do it. Again, it's very similar to measurable. So that's one method, would be the SMART targets, setting targets for them. It's a really effective way of doing it. Another method would be giving something that we all like, and that's incentives and awards for achieving tasks. Okay, so if you set small tasks and you say, right, if you achieve this in this time scale, you will get, I don't know, you could use anything. You could say that you get a McDonald's or some kind of certificate. It's up to you. You need to find out what motivates your participant, and then that can be the incentive in which you use. Okay, if they want a book token or if they want a free session in the gym, that's what you need to find out. That's what about being a coach is, but about finding out what motivates people. Then you use that to give them incentives. Okay, hope I've covered everything on that. Moving on again. All right, guys, we're near enough halfway here, so stick with me. It says, what are the record keeping procedures that must be followed for the following? Okay, now if we look at, if we're going down this column here, okay, it's not very clear that, sorry about that, but we're going down this column here. So record keeping procedures for participants, we need to keep registers for them, records of registers, and also very important, we need to keep records of emergency contacts. Okay, that's really important. Okay, in case anything goes wrong within a session, you get injured or anything like that, this is very important. Okay. Now, records regarding equipment, setting up and taking down. Okay, we need to keep we need to keep records of assembly procedures, so how to set certain equipment up. It could be if it's goalposts, or it could be setting up some inflatables in the pool. We need records of how to do that properly and safely. Okay, and alongside that, we need an equipment checklist. Okay, so we need to be able to check that all the equipment that we get out is functioning properly. It's not broken, it's not faulty, and it's fit for purpose. Okay, they're really important, obviously, from a coach's perspective. Next up, we've got equipment safety and serviceability. So we need to keep a log of when safety checks are carried out on equipment. It should be taken out, quite often, maybe once a month, to make sure that everything is safe and it can be serviced. And there needs to be a log of that. So if anything ever did go wrong, and someone says, right, when was it last serviced? Then someone can sit and say, oh, I can see it was done by such and such a person on last month. Okay, and it just makes sure that you're doing things properly, and it minimises the risk as well, the risk of anything going wrong, which is very, very similar to this one here. Keep a regular service log kept on the equipment as well. All right, that's a pretty simple one, that. And then it goes on to say, why may recording attendance, so like we say, registers here for participants, why may recording attendance be important in some contexts? Okay, now it's got a lot of uses. Okay, it's not just a paper pushing exercise. If you keep a good register, you'll be able to see obviously attendance, and if you see that attendance is dropping by any learners or any participants, then that's going to affect their progress, and you can nip that in the bud. Then if you see, right, Joe Bloggs hasn't turned up, in the last 4 sessions, you can then get in touch with whoever, get in touch with them personally, or if the youngsters, get in touch with their parents or their school and say, look, the fact that they've not been in is going to really affect their progress, and then you come up with an action plan then, basically. Okay. And then you've got another instance where, let's say you're doing a swimming session or a gym session and the fire alarm goes off and everyone goes outside to their muster point. You need to make sure that everybody, it's really important this, that you need to make sure that everybody that you've logged in on that register is outside. And if not, that could mean that they're inside either the swimming pool or the gym that is on fire, and that you need to tell obviously the fire services when they turn up that you think you're missing a person, and they'll go in there and they'll try and find that person as a matter of urgency. Okay, but that is one aspect that where the register is very, very important. Okay, so you should always take detailed registers and keep them safe and record them week on week and keep them in a file as well. So you've got a long record of them throughout the year. Okay, moving on, page 16. It states, why is it important to explain the aims and objectives and benefits of the session? Okay, as I've said before, this is similar to a box that we did before. It's really important that the participants understand why they are doing something. Okay, and coaching should be a partnership. It shouldn't just be the coach saying, do this, do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. It should be a partnership. What do you think you want to do next? How do you think we could improve this part of you? Okay, so it should be a partnership, and that's why it's really important that you as a coach should explain your aims and objectives of each session. Why are you doing what you're doing? What are you trying to achieve? Okay, and along with that, as is outlined in the box there, it helps build motivation and morale. All right, on to the next box. Okay, it states here, Why is it important to find out about participants' previous experiences? Okay, another big one. So you need, in order for you to do or to carry out a proper session, you need to understand what your participants already know. Because as we've said before, if you're going to do a gym session and somebody's used to going to the gym twice, 3 times a week, so they know how to do everything, how to use all the weights, how to do the machine, and you take them in and you say, right, sit down here, Henry. Yeah, this is how you do a chest press. This is how you do a shoulder press. They're going to think, what is this? What is this? This is no use to me. Okay, they've done it all before. Again, motivation will go and they might not come back. They're not going to get anything from the session. You as a coach, you're not going to get anything from the session either. Whereas if you go in there and you find out, right, okay, we've been working on a training plan the past 6 months. He's been trying to get, a bigger chest, bigger arms. We'll go in there. This is what his weight is at the minute. We can now really try and push him and get him to his next level and get him even stronger. Okay. And that's really important that you research what your participants done in the past, so that you're not covering old ground, and that you're going to get the best out of you're going to help your participant reach their potential. Okay, just realised that I've got a little bit of a mistake in here. There we go, all fixed. Next up. Why should participants be mentally and physically ready for the activities that they will be involved in? Okay, so mentally, to abbreviate that means right in the head, and physically, that means obviously within the body. Are they physically ready? Is their body ready to carry out the activities which you're going to do? Okay, an example of this, of them being mentally prepared, is imagine you've been working with somebody in the gym. Again, I'll use a gym again as an example. If you're trying to get them towards a certain level, okay, and you say, right, after we can do a certain session today, and then they go away, you come out the next week and say, right, surprise, I'm going to assess you today, I'm going to video you, I want you to see you do everything to the best of your ability. They could feel ridiculous pressure because you've not prepared them, okay, for that assessment. You've not sort of laid the groundwork and said, right, we're going to do this week, week 1, week 2, then week 3, we're going to record you, we're going to assess you, okay. So if you put that on them straight away and you don't give them any warning, they're going to feel underprepared and pressured, and they're not going to perform to their best. Okay. And if you do give them time, it gives them time to get psyched up. All right. Obviously, physically ready as well. If you warn them that they're going to have a physical assessment the week after next, they can get their body physically ready. They can do a proper diet in the lead up to the session. And they can also do the appropriate training in the week leading up to make sure that their body is physically prepared for that session that you're going to do with them. Okay, so it's really, really important that you sit the participants down on a regular basis and you let them know what is going to be happening, this week, next week, and the week after, just so that they can get in their mind's eye that they're exactly sure on what they're going to do. Okay, right. Next up, what methods would you use to mentally and physically prepare participants for activities they will be involved in? So obviously this leads directly on from the last question. What you can do is you could do a mock. You could do a mock of what the activity is going to be the week after or the day after. Okay, you can walk them through it, so you can say, right, you're going to be doing an assessment in leg press. See what you can get out 1 rep max. And also you're going to be doing shoulder press and the pull-up challenge as well, okay? And then you can let them have a go, okay? So you can let them have a go of doing it. Not the max, but just have a little go, just so that they understand what's going on, okay? Another way you can do it as well is that you as the coach, okay, you can demonstrate what is expected of them. So if you're going to do a certain technique, so if you're doing swimming and someone's going to be assessed on their front crawl, if you wanted to, you could get in the pool alongside them and you could carry out a demonstration showing them what is expected of them the next week or the week after or whenever you're going to do the assessment. Okay. If you've got 2 groups, or if you've got a group and a certain part of the group have already done their assessment, you could ask one of them to give a demonstration on what they did when they did their demonstration, just to put the other group members at ease about what is expected of them as well. Okay. The last one there also says video. If you have a video of anybody doing, an assessment which you're expecting someone else to do or your participant to do, you could show them that. Again, it works like getting someone from the group to give a demonstration, all right? And the whole reason behind that is just to make sure that they know exactly what's going to be going on in the coming sessions, okay? So they are mentally and physically prepared. Okay, moving on from that, we are getting towards the end now, guys, honestly. I know it's a bit of a long slog, this one. We've got outlined the key points that must be explained to participate. Excuse me. Outline the key points that must be explained to participants before they begin activities. Okay. Again, these are all similar concepts which we're going over in the last few boxes. Before the beginning of the activity, you need to say how long it's going to be. All right. So they know how long they're going to work for. It's going to be an hour. It's going to be half an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours. How long is it going to be? Okay, how hard are you expecting them to work? Is this going to be a bit of a rest day where it's just going to be an easy session? Or are you preparing for competition? Or are you really trying to push their training plan? It's going to be really intense. You need to let them know that before the session, okay? You need to let them know the type of activity that they're going to be doing, okay? They're going to be doing cardio, they're going to be doing resistance, they're going to be doing pool work, ball work if they're doing football, they're going to be doing fitness training, what they're going to be doing. Okay, you need to tell them what the rules and regulations of your session are. Okay, what do you expect of them? You need to tell them what the risks are. Obviously, you should do a risk assessment prior to every session to let them, and you need to pass that information that you get from that risk assessment onto them and let them know what the risks are of the session. Okay, and then finally, what you should always make clear to all participants, they can withdraw whenever they want. Okay, if they feel dizzy, if they don't feel up to it, if for whatever reason, they can withdraw whenever they like. You need to make them understand that you are not a slave driver. You're not trying to make them build pyramids somewhere, okay? They can withdraw whenever they like, all right? And they are the key points that you need to make sure that you're passing on to your participants at the start of every session, okay? Next up, we have got state the types of questions or problems that participants may have. So participants always have questions, okay? You may go sessions and sessions without any, then you may get 5 or 6 in one. Okay, but the typical sort of questions may be that the participants are unsure about equipment. Okay, so you might get youngsters who don't know what a woggle is or don't know what it's for. They're the sort of questions you might get. If you're in the gym, you may get questions about how to use equipment. Okay, so be prepared for that. They may be asking, what breaks are they entitled to? They're going to have a break every half an hour, every 15 minutes, and that's up to you to decide. They may ask, what intensity they're going to be working at today. And then I've got that little one I've got at the bottom there, that little word there, norms. That means people may ask you, what do people normally get? What does the average person normally do in this situation? How many reps can the average person normally get out for this weight? Okay, so just be informed on what is, what people normally get. What is the average that people normally do? Okay, because people always like to compare themselves to other people. Say, am I doing this right? What do other people normally get? Am I anywhere near that? Okay, so you need to make sure that you're informed on all the information that might be asked of you. All right, then we're getting towards the end here now. Okay, next up we have got describe methods that can be used to explain and demonstrate key points. Now, I've mentioned this in previous boxes, guys, so I'm not going to go into this too much. You can use a tactics board to get your point across. YouTube clips, demonstrations. If you're part of a company, your company could get expert speakers in, so you might get someone that, a Paralympian in who can talk specifically about swimming and disabled swimming. Yeah, okay, so someone that's really got that experience, you can get them in, and they can demonstrate and explain key points. Okay, you can get experts in from any area. All right. Next up, we have got why is it important to encourage questions and answers in the session? Okay, so you want as much input from your participants as possible. Okay, you want as much, because the more input you get, the more effective your session can be, because you can address certain aspects, you can give demonstrations on certain aspects. Okay, so if you're trying to promote a question and answers session, you are fostering a good, productive working environment. Okay, it's a two-way road. All right, it's not, again, as I said before, it's not just you saying do this, do that. It's a good working environment. If you're saying that, if you're trying to promote a good question and answers session. It also ensures that participants fully understand what's going on. Okay, so they can ask questions if they're unsure about things. You can answer. It means that everyone's on the same page. All right, and there's no confusion. And again, the final point I've put on there, it makes, when you involve people, it makes them feel valued. Okay, because it makes them feel that you value their opinion, you value their voice. Okay, and that's really important. That helps foster a really good and really nice working environment. Okay, so it's really important that you do that. And you can do that via the question and answers session. Okay, moving swiftly on. Maybe not swiftly enough for some of you. Right, we have got, which methods can you use to make sure participants understand what is expected of them? Okay, so as we just said, you can use a question and answers session. You can ask them to give a demonstration, so you can make sure that they know what they're doing by getting them to actually do it, basically. Okay, you could sit them down and give them a little quiz, or you could sit them down if you've got a group. You could have a group discussion to make sure that everybody understands. You can have a bit of a debate, make sure that everyone understands exactly what's going on. Okay, or what's expected of them. Okay, pretty straightforward, that box there. You've got, how do you supervise the participants during the activity? Okay, now this all depends on the ability level, 2, the age, and thirdly, it could be the vulnerability. Are the group, disabled, or they have learning issues? But you need to remain close to whoever you're coaching. Okay, you can't be walking around on your phone, not facing them. You need to remain close and supervise them carefully. All right, which means obviously always remaining in visual contact. And obviously, it's no good just doing a drill or an activity and not getting involved and saying what they're doing right and wrong. You need to be able to coach the correct technique. Because you might get them to do a swimming session where, yeah, they might be staying afloat, but have they got the correct technique of swimming, of what you're trying to teach? And if not, you need to make sure that you're supervising properly and that you correct that technique. Okay, but the most important parts are that you always remain, close in visual contact with all participants at all time. Okay, giving verbal cues as well. So you could give them verbal feedback as well, just to let them know that you're there. Obviously, that goes for things like swimming. So if someone's swimming and they're doing front crawl and they're putting their face in the water, if you give some verbal reassurance, then obviously that's going to be key. All right, it's going to let them know. It's going to put them at ease, and it's going to let them know that you're still there. Okay, and that you're supervising them. All right, we're getting towards the end here, guys. Which behaviour management techniques could you use when leading a session? Okay, so unfortunately, sometimes you have to deal with bad behaviour. Sometimes you don't, but sometimes you need to be aware of how to manage the group from a behavioural perspective to make sure that people are behaving in the correct way. Some examples of that are if you're working with youngsters or not even youngsters. Sometimes adults can be even worse behaved than youngsters. But one aspect I always like to use is a one person talking rule. So if one person's talking, nobody else is talking. Okay, if the coach is talking, no one else talks. If someone's asking a question, then no one else talks over them. Okay, that can be one rule which you put in. It could be a technique. Follow the leader you could have. Now that doesn't work in all aspects. Obviously, it doesn't work in the gym. But if you're a swimming instructor, if you've got a person that's really good at technique, you could say, right, Josh is going to do front crawl or breaststroke up and down. The rest of you guys, you need to follow exactly what he does and watch exactly what he does. Okay, and that can be like another way of behaviour management. Another one would be make sure you've got sanctions. So if someone does break any rules or has bad behaviour, you need to have some sort of sanction, or punishment's quite a harsh word, but there needs to be some sort of consequence for breaking the rules. And another thing, if you're in a gym or if you're in a classroom or you're in somewhere where you can put rules up on the wall, clear visual rules are always good, because then obviously people know exactly what's expected of them. All right, so it's another good technique to try and keep good behaviour within the group. All right. So next up, we have got state the levels of supervision that are appropriate to different activities and types of participants. Okay. So beginners and children, especially in a pool situation, constant close supervision. You have to stay exactly on top of them, basically. You need to make sure that you are close by, very close by enough to, if you have to, take evasive action in the pool. The same in the gym. Beginners and children, there's a lot more risk there because they're not used to being in that situation. So you need to stay very close. You need to stay supervised. People that have got a mild understanding of what's going on, and young adults, okay, you can take a bit of a step back. Again, you don't want to feel like you're suffocating the participants. You don't want to seem like you're on them all the time, like you're like, you know, a pushy parent. You do want to take a step back, but not that far back, you know, that you can't, you know, be there if needed, okay? So just be aware that you don't want to suffocate the participants. You don't want to be stood over them all the time, but again, you don't want to be, you know, absent either, okay? And if you've got advanced learners and adults, okay, supervision must be still vigilant, so you need to make sure that you're obviously watching what's going on, but they can be allowed a bit more freedom, obviously, okay? It's like when you've got, you know, imagine Alex Ferguson coaching the United team, okay? He's not going to be stood next to them all the time saying, right, make sure you do this, be careful of that, all right? He's going to step back a lot. He's going to give them the instructions and let them get on with it, okay? That's what you can do with advanced or adult participants, but you must still be vigilant. That means you must still be there, be present, and look what's going on, okay? In case anything goes wrong. Moving on. Describe when it is and is not appropriate to intervene in an activity, okay? So there's times when you should step in, there's times when you don't need to step in, okay? So you can step in, always step in, if safety is being jeopardized, okay? So if safety is being risked, you've got to get in. If there's a fight, if someone's using the incorrect technique, if people are prattling about in the pool, kids, you need to step in and you need to intervene and say, look, it's not acceptable, stop it, okay? And obviously explain to them why it's not acceptable, okay? You don't really need to intervene if you've set a session up, okay, and you've said, right, you need to do A, B, C, and D, and you want to see how these people perform. You don't want to be stepping in all the time and stopping it, because it fragments the session and it stops the flow of the session as well, especially in football that this accounts for as well. You get a lot of coaches who are trying to coach something and they'll be stepping in every 2 minutes, and the players are going, well, I was trying to do this, I was trying to do that. And sometimes you'll find if you don't step in, even if they're doing bad technique at the start, you might see that they, you know, on their own, they may pick up the technique, okay, just by trial and error. So you want to try and not intervene during a session unless safety is at a risk, okay? Okay, here we go. Page 20. It says on this question, describe the methods that should be used to help the participants to achieve the aims and objectives of the session. So you want to give guidance, okay? Guidance throughout the session on what they should be doing. Advice where appropriate. You can give feedback during the session as well. A big thing as well, guys, is patience. All right, you're going to encounter sometimes learners that pick up things slower than other people are. That might even be difficult as well. The behaviour might be. The last thing you want to do is lose control, raise your voice a lot, and start waving your arms around, shouting and yelling. You need to remain patient and stay in control at all times. That's really important. Patience is very important. Okay. Another way which can help them achieve their aims and objectives is a close working relationship, okay? Now, what that means that they trust you, basically, and that they will confide in you and say, look, I'm really finding this difficult, I'm finding this hard, can you give me advice on this? Some coaches might be really unapproachable, and participants might not want to approach them and say, I've got issues with this. They might just want to try and please the coach and say, yeah, I understand that, and really, they don't. And in that case, there's a possibility that the participants might not reach their aims and objectives of the session because they're scared of letting the coach down by saying they don't understand something. But in the long run, it's going to be worse for them, okay? So a close working relationship is really important. All right. Next up, how do you gauge participants' feeling about activities and how would you respond to these, okay? So basically, you would, as we've said before in previous boxes, you would ask for their feedback, okay? It could be verbal, you could give them a survey, so a written feedback, where they can raise their concerns if they have any, or maybe they want to praise you. They might want to say, this is going really well, I'm really enjoying this, can we do some more of this? Some more weightlifting, can we do some more bench press, can we do some more back roll? Okay, so it doesn't always have to be negative feedback, but if it is negative, then you need to, and it's a massive point, you need to deal with it constructively, okay? It's not a personal attack on you, and even if it is, yeah, you need to stay professional and you need to be, constructive about it. Okay, which means take it on board and see if you can incorporate any points which the students bring up to change and adapt your session in the future to make it better for them, and ultimately make it better for you as well. Okay, but you must remain professional at all times and deal with it constructively. Never ever get into an argument about you think you're right and they're wrong. If you do think you're right and they're wrong, approach it in a way where you say, I understand what you're saying, but the reason to do this is because of A, B, C, D. Never engage in an argument. Okay, it shows lack of knowledge on your part. Okay, I promise you we are getting towards the end here. Okay, next question. Outline the types of new risks, needs and opportunities that could occur during a session that may require a change of your plans. Okay, so things that may require a change of your plans are if you've gone to do a session outside, a football session outside, if risks occur that you've not planned for. Okay, so if weather conditions change, if it's really muddy, if the rain's come down, it's made it a waterlogged pitch, then obviously you need to change your plans there. Either go inside or go to a different site that's not as waterlogged. All right. Obviously, another risk which you'd have to change your plans for is if you're outside, it's hot, or if you're indoors and it's hot, and your participants are getting exhausted, or they've not eaten properly beforehand. You'll find that out during the session if they're not eating properly, or if someone gets injured as well, you have to change your session then, obviously. Okay. Moving on to opportunities. If within your session someone's doing something wrong, that's an opportunity, or if someone's doing the wrong technique, that's an opportunity for you to step in, and it's a learning opportunity for you to get in there and say, look, I've noticed that this isn't being done, correctly. Here's how you do it. You do a demonstration. You correct that technique. That is an opportunity for you to get in and make sure that you're teaching these individuals properly the correct technique and the correct skill. Okay, and as we've mentioned before, the needs. You may realise that your group has got a higher need than what you first thought, or they don't have as high needs as you first thought, and therefore you can change your plan to make it either more difficult, or you can change your plan to make it a little bit more easier. And now you can do that in a variety of different ways. In a gym, obviously make weights lighter. In a football session, if you've got a let's say for example what's the word I'm looking for? If you're doing a possession session, you might make the area bigger to make it easier, or make it smaller to make it harder. Okay, that's you catering for the needs of the group or the individual. All right, moving on even further. Give 3 examples of participant behaviour that could be interpreted as inappropriate during activities. Okay, this is the thing you need to keep your eye out for as a coach. So bad language is obviously a no-no. You need to address that. You shouldn't be having bad language during sessions. Verbal abuse to public, if you're in a public area. Like I know a lot of you guys are. If you work in a leisure centre, that's the public. You need to be aware of the impact that your participant is having on the public around them. Could be young kids, could be anybody. I mean, nobody should be exposed to verbal abuse or bad language. And touching as well. Inappropriate touching, it might be of you as the coach, or inappropriate touching of other participants. Okay, you need to nip that right in the bud, as that is a safeguarding issue. Okay, if there's anything like that, you need to report that as well. Obviously, that's a really big aspect of it. Next up, how do you establish a leadership role based on mutual respect? Okay, so how do you make yourself, the leader who is mutually respected by everybody? Okay, and obviously mutual respect means that you respect the learners as well. Okay, and the way you do that is by creating clear rules and boundaries. All right, and being consistent as well. Okay, so if somebody does something wrong and you sanction them, you need to make sure that you do the same thing if somebody else does it wrong. You can't have one rule for one and one rule for another. You need to have clear rules and boundaries and make sure you stick to them. All right. Now treat each other fairly, as I've just said. Then you need to make sure that everything's fair and that you're consistent. Be open and honest with everybody. Okay. Why you've got rules in place, what you'll do, or what the sanctions are if any of these are breached. Okay. Be open and honest from the start. Then everybody knows exactly what's expected. It says there, shared ideas. Some of the best sessions I've ever done, some of the best rules I've ever come up with have been because I've opened it up to the group. What do you think? You say to the group, what do you think should be a rule? what should be our boundaries, okay? And they come up with certain things that which you might not even think of, which is great, okay? And shared ideas, and then you've got that mutual respect between each other. That again, you're not just telling them what they can and can't do, but they're having input as well as what they want from you as a coach, okay? What you can and can't do, maybe, okay? And that just really builds a really good mutual respect and really good leadership style as well. All right, and finally there, you've got constructive feedback from both participant and leader. So not only are you giving the participants feedback, but you're getting feedback on your session, how it went from them as well. And that together, as a partnership, as I've said in the past, it works really, really well, and it makes for effective learning, and it makes it enjoyable for you as well as a coach. Moving on. More boxes than what I thought in there. Describe the importance of good working relationships between participants. Again, I've been over this in previous parts, so I'm not gonna stay on this for too long. It's very important in order for everyone to achieve individual and joint goals that you have a good working relationship, so that everyone gets on. Yeah, doesn't mean you all have to be friends, but you all get on during the session. It can increase morale and motivation. You hear all the time about football teams saying good dressing room atmosphere. There's no coincidence that the best teams in the world and the best athletes in the world have the best dressing rooms, the best sort of working environments. Okay, it creates good, healthy competition as well. If you've got a big group and they're all in healthy competition between each other, it's a good working environment. They're going to progress a lot faster than if someone's, if everyone's bickering and not helping each other, basically. Okay, so that's really important. Why should each participant receive adequate attention? Okay, so let's say you've got a group of 5 here, okay? You need to make sure that you spend, an adequate amount of time with everyone. That doesn't mean spending the exact same amount of time with everybody, because as we've said before, individuals have different needs, but you need to make sure that you're spending adequate time, okay? Adequate meaning, does it fit their needs, basically? Are you spending enough time for their needs? So if they're really good, that might mean you don't need to spend that much time with them, but you do need to make sure that you touch base with them. Whereas if they're beginners, you need to spend more time, and you need to make sure that you're getting the best out of them as well. Okay, and as we've said before, it makes participants feel valued. Okay. All right. Identify 2 ways of working that encourage communication and interaction between participants. Okay, so in order to get everyone working together, group tasks are really good for that. Okay, get them sat down, get them ideas going, problem-solving activities as well. Even things like icebreakers, such as trying to build the biggest tower out of wine gums, or something like that. Okay, it gets people thinking of different things. It gets people interacting. It's really good. Give them a joint goal. So the joint goal would be obviously build a pyramid as big as you can of wine gums or something like that. I mean, I'm using that as an example. It could be anything, any group task. Yeah, any joint goal really, really encourages communication between each other. All right. Next up, how do you balance the needs of individual participants with those of the group as a whole? Okay, so you need to use something that is called differentiation. Okay, so you need to differentiate tasks to cater for the individual needs of the group. Okay, so what that means is you need to make sure that you're differentiating due to to needs again. Okay, so the joint goal, the group goal might be to create something. Yeah, the individuals might have their own individual tasks that they have to do to create the whole goal at the end. Okay, and you need to make sure that you can interact with the individual as well as the group goal. Okay. Observation of activity, you'll be able to see individuals that might need more help than others, as we've just said in the previous box, and you'll be able to highlight not higher risk, but people that have higher needs than others, and then you'll be able to go in and focus on them as well as the group as a whole as well. Okay, and it goes on to say about give adequate time, as we mentioned above. All right. Why is it important to encourage participants to communicate and relate effectively with one another? Okay, so this means people relating to each other means people having empathy and people understanding each other, and it's important because if everyone works together, then everybody achieves more. Basically, everyone can help and support each other. I think in my own experience, if you're working within a team, you get a lot more out of it than if you're working as an individual, okay? Because you get motivation, you get other skill sets which are in there, which some people can add something to the whole group, which is always good. Effective communication is essential for getting the best out of individuals. Okay, if no one ever spoke, if no one ever communicated with each other with good ideas or support, then you wouldn't get the best out of people. Okay, so it's really important that effective communication, and it's essential for getting the best out of individuals. All right, not too far off now. Oops, excuse me. Not there. All right, identify 2 types of behaviour that have a positive effect on the group and 2 types of behaviour that have a negative effect on the group. Okay, so 2 positives. You've got teamwork. We've got more than 2 up here. I'll give you a few. You've got teamwork is good, group cohesion, constructive feedback, and respectful debate. Okay, they are behaviours that have positive effects. Okay, negative effects is a I know best attitude, so selfish attitude, infighting. Okay, so bickering, ignoring individuals, shouting matches, and disrespectful behaviour. They're all going to have a negative effect on your group or on your participant. Okay, you want to steer clear of them. Okay, next up. Why should the types of behaviour that have a positive and negative effects on the group be emphasised? Well, obviously, if you tell people what is going to, make them perform better, they're going to want to do it. Okay, so if you say these are positive things, do these. These are negative things, don't do these. Okay, and that helps cement positive behaviours and discourage negative behaviours. And it also helps to develop people on a personal level as well, so they can have self-analysis and appraise themselves and see, am I behaving in a correct way or not behaving in a correct way? Okay, so in a way you're teaching them life skills as well, which again is great. Okay, so moving on from there. Identify 2 types of unacceptable behaviour that must be challenged. Okay, we've been through this before. Verbal abuse, inappropriate touching, physical abuse, threatening behaviour, and so on, basically. Okay, obviously none of us want that. Why is it important to challenge these behaviours? To teach and mentor individuals unacceptable behaviour. And obviously, again, you've got safety to think about. If people are behaving in inappropriate ways, then it could cause harm or danger, or it could cause someone to get upset. You don't want that. Okay, you want to challenge it. You want to nip it in the bud, so it doesn't happen again, and people understand that they cannot act like that. Okay. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about that, guys. And also, as you can see here, it says it can add value to an individual's personality that can have a huge impact on them personally, which is great. Again, we can develop them as a person as well as in the gym or in the pool. Okay, I think we're on to the last 3 questions now. It says outline methods and procedures for dealing with unacceptable behaviour. Okay, as we've already mentioned, you can have things like sanctions or timeouts. Okay, so if someone sits out for 5 minutes after after bad behaviour, you can have one-to-one reviews at the end of a session to obviously identify key points which you weren't happy with or that they need to change in the future. That gives you another opportunity as well to give an explanation on why the behaviour is unacceptable, what are the risks. Because some people might behave in a certain way and not be aware of the impact that they're having on other people around them. Okay, so you need to identify that. Okay, you need to tell them. You need to highlight why it's unacceptable. Another one that you can choose as well, or that you can use with youngsters, is a report card system that can track behaviour over a period of time. So if someone is constantly misbehaving, then you can go on a report, and then they can track that behaviour, and then you can say, well, your target is to improve this behaviour by a certain amount by a certain time. Okay, and a report card will give you that ability to do that, basically. Okay, here we go. Last 2 questions. Outline methods and procedures for dealing with conflict. Okay, now there's a lot of things you can do. So you act within the session. So if it's happening within the session, all you want to do, you want to de-escalate the conflict. Okay, you don't want to make it any worse than it is. So you want to step in there, you want to calm everything down. If you go in there, shouting and bawling or raising your voice or engaging in an argument with them, okay, then that's not going to work. All right, you need to de-escalate, go in there, calm it down, If it's between two people, split them up. If it's between one person, take them out of the environment, take them away and calm them down. Okay. Another way you can do it is have a debrief after the session. So if something's happened, then you can talk about it after the session. You can get everyone's side of the story, and you can sit down and have a bit of a debate about it. You can have mediation if needed. So what that means is, if it's between two people, you as the coach can act, as a mediator. So you can say, well, I think you've got some interesting points there. However, I think you could probably change this. And then you say to the other person, yeah, I understand why you're saying that, but maybe you could change this or do this. Okay. So instead of just letting the two people go at each other, you're the mediator in between who's controlling the discussion. Okay. And again, as we've already said, take the action in form of sanctions, which I've mentioned above. Right, here we go, guys. Final question. All right. We have got, why is it important to maintain participants' emotional welfare? Okay. So emotional welfare can have a huge impact on performance and overall welfare. Okay, so emotional welfare is how someone feels in the self. Do they feel happy? Do they feel sad, angry, undervalued? It's really important that you make sure that you're making everyone feel as happy as possible. Happy and also safe is another big one. Okay, if people don't feel happy, if they don't feel safe, the performance is going to be right down, okay? The behavior is also going to go down as well, so it's going to affect the behavior, okay? Other things it can affect, which I've outlined there, is motivation. If people don't feel happy, the motivation goes down. Morale, the relationship formation with the group can be affected, so they might not form good relationships. And as we've said in the past, it's really good to have a good working environment, a good working atmosphere. And finally, we've got participation continuation. So if their emotional welfare dips and they're not happy, then they might not come back, they might not continue, they might not progress in their physical endeavours. Okay, so that's really important. All right, guys, so that sums up everything. That has done everything for us. That is the whole of Unit 2. That's the podcast over now. If you have any questions, if you think I've missed anything, please email me, call me, text me, whatever you want to do, just please get in touch with me. I'm looking to visit, like I say, in the next few weeks to look at your observations, but I will ring you all individually. Please look out for your emails as well, though, but I will call you all individually and give you a date and time that is good for you, and when I will come down and observe you doing your 3 session plans. All right, thank you for listening. See you later.